So what made it harder than we thought? Well, I think once you start, one of the things about science and with a lot of things is the devil is in the details. And once you start getting to the nuances, let's take birds for example. There are birds that we see all the time. We see year-round. We see pigeon guillemons. So it's very easy to include that bird on the list. But what about birds that just come here occasionally? Maybe someone has cited them 5 times or 10 times. Do we really include them in the list? So we had to start including parameters for who uses the marine ecosystem, and we started to divide it up by, do they use it for food? Do they use it for habitat? You know, how much and when? So we have a list that has 172 birds and 37 mammals species, but really what we have is a list that's subdivided. Some of those are high users, some of those are low users, some of them are incidental. Some of the birds that use the ecosystem occasionally were not included because they don't come here enough. So that made it very challenging. The other thing is we don't always do a good job of keeping good records and making those records available. So finding out which birds and which mammals come into the area entailed going back to some very old documents and looking back through old documents, talking to people on the phone, sometimes getting expert opinion, going back and do literature searches to see if things were around. So it really was the details that were the most difficult about making the list. But I think we have a good list, and I think it's a great place to start, and it'll grow from here. When you want to restore something, it's really important to know what is there or what has been there historically, so you can figure out, you know, what do you want to be here, how do you want it to be there, and what numbers. And without having a list of all the birds and mammals, and also our list details when they are here. So are they seasonal users? Are they winter users? Are they summer users? Are they here year-round? We're trying to look for indicators of telling us how is the ecosystem doing. And if you don't have a list of all the potential possibilities, how are you going to pick the best one? You may pick somebody's favorite. So this list is really important because it gives us a stable baseline, and it allows us to really drill down to the species and know which species are using it when. The other thing that's really important is we're undertaking a big project right now. Dr. Nacho Vilches is doing a marine bird analysis to say which birds are in decline. How can you say which birds are in decline and which birds are stable and which birds are improving if you don't really know which birds use the system? So this is a really important start for projects like that. How did we do this list? Well, I had started making lists a while ago, talking with people, looking up records, but I knew it was going to take a concerted effort. So I worked with Scott Pearson at the Department of Fish and Wildlife as a co-author on the project. And we went back through old documents. We started with the list that I had and just started removing animals from that list or adding animals to that list. And then making sure that for every animal on that list, we had a citation, scientifically proven citation that that animal was here at least a certain number of times, and if the animal was here, that it was actually using marine resources. So there are some funny animals on there, animals like a fox. And most people don't think of a red fox, but then we were able to find documentation that foxes in some areas, like on San Juan Island, went down into the intertidal and were intertidal foragers. So we included them on the list. There were other animals. In some places there are certain species of mice or rodents that use the marine ecosystem, and we have those mice and rodents in this area, but we could never find documentation that they were using marine resources here, so we didn't include those animals. So what are some interesting things that we learned? Well, I would have to say that every species that was a surprise to us was interesting. For example, we knew that river otters were going to be on there. River otters are a major intertidal forager throughout the Salish Sea. They do come on land, they do go out freshwater rivers, but they're in the ocean a lot. Other animals like the beaver was a surprise to us. So Greg Hood, who's a biologist with Skagit Systems Cooperative, did some really neat work showing that in intertidal marsh areas, so this is areas that are marsh, but they're tidally influenced, so that was included in our study, that these beavers not only live there, but they actually make small dams, and those small dams are a really important habitat for juvenile out-migrating salmon. The water behind the dam is deeper, and that allows the salmon to be protected from being eaten from things like great blue herons that come in the area. So not only are these beavers eating intertidal marsh stuff, so relying upon marine resources, but they're actually creating marine habitat for really important marine species like salmon. So that was pretty cool.